My wife cheated on me with her wealthy boss, and when I found out, she claimed he stole $250, $0 from her business. Now the lawyer says I could lose everything over the property and debts we fought over, and I'm terrified she's been lying the whole time. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Lisa, turned out to be a lying, cheating bitch who played me for a fool. But here I am. And honestly, I still can't believe it's real. The thing is, I caught her. Not just a suspicion, not a gut feeling, hard proof. And it hit me like a freight train out of nowhere. One moment I was just a regular guy, thinking everything was fine, and the next, my whole world was crashing down around me. It started about 3 months ago. Lisa had been acting a little distant, but I figured she was just stressed with her business. She runs a small boutique, and she's always been a bit of a control freak about it. She'd come home late, sometimes smelling like perfume I didn't recognize, or she'd brush off my questions with a sharp attitude. I didn't want to be paranoid, so I let it slide. But then I noticed her phone going off at odd hours, and she'd quickly hide it or change the subject if I looked at her screen. One night I was working late myself, and I decided to check her emails, something I normally wouldn't do, but I was just curious. I found a string of messages between her and a guy named Mark. The tone was intimate, flirtatious even. They were talking about meeting up, about how much they missed each other. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the messages, and I saw the last one. "Can't wait to see you tonight, it's been too long." That was the moment I knew. My wife was cheating on me. I felt sick. My mind was racing. How long has this been going on? Who was Mark? Did she really love him? Or was this just some fling? I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the evidence was clear. I had to confront her. I waited until she came home the next day, trying to keep my composure, but I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. When she walked in, all confident and bitchy as usual, I couldn't hold back anymore. I told her I knew about her and Mark. Her face twisted into a sneer, and she rolled her eyes like I was bothering her. "Oh, please," she snapped. "You're overreacting. It's just some guy I met at a networking event, nothing serious." I stared at her, stunned. How could she lie so easily? How could she dismiss it like it was nothing? I showed her the messages, and her response was even more infuriating. "Those are just words, Ethan," she said, crossing her arms. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. Mark's just a friend. You're paranoid as usual. You always think everyone's cheating on you." I couldn't believe her. That was the first lie. She'd been sleeping with her boss, Jason, the entire time. I later found out from a friend that she'd been seen leaving his office late at night, and that she'd been taking secret trips for business meetings. And now she was calling me paranoid. That was the moment everything started to unravel inside me. But it was just the affair that crushed me. It was the way she lied so effortlessly, like I was some idiot who couldn't see what was right in front of him. She always had an excuse. She was stressed. She was misunderstood. I was insecure. That's what made it worse. The betrayal wasn't just about the sex. It was about her lying, manipulating, and pretending everything was fine while she was sneaking around behind my back. I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. I'd given her everything, my loyalty, my trust, my life. And she'd thrown it all away for some rich asshole who probably didn't even care about her. I couldn't sleep that night, replaying everything I'd discovered, trying to understand how I'd been so blind. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut so many times I couldn't breathe. And yet the worst part was that I still loved her. Somewhere deep inside, I wanted to believe she'd come clean, that maybe she'd realized what she was doing was wrong. But the truth was, I knew this wasn't just a fling. It was something serious, and I had no idea what to do next. I felt trapped, humiliated, and betrayed. I wanted to confront her again, to hear her lie her way out of it, but I also knew I had to be smart. She was manipulative, and I didn't trust her to be honest anymore. I started to think about everything I'd worked for, our house, our savings, the future we'd planned. All of it felt like it was slipping away, and I was terrified that her lies about the money and her business were just the tip of the iceberg. That's when I realized I had to get some real answers. I couldn't just sit around waiting for her to confess or come clean. I needed proof, and I needed to know exactly how deep this went. Because if she was willing to cheat on me, what else was she hiding? And if her lies about the money were true, that she'd been stolen from her business, I had a sinking feeling I was about to lose everything. I just didn't know how much of her story was real and how much was just another lie she'd tell to save herself. After that night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing over everything I'd uncovered. The messages, her dismissive attitude, the way she lied so easily. I started to dig deeper, not just into her affair, but into her business dealings too. I wanted to know if there was any truth to her story about Jason stealing $250, $0 from her company. She had thrown that out as a way to justify her affair, claiming she was drained and betrayed by her boss, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was lying again. The next morning, I decided to do some snooping of my own. I always knew Lisa could be bitchy, but I never thought she'd be so good at hiding things. I went through her emails and bank statements, trying to piece together what was real and what was just her manipulation. What I found made my stomach turn. There were suspicious transfers to an account I'd never seen before, large sums of money going in and out. It looked like she was hiding something, and I was starting to think her story about Jason stealing money might be a cover-up. I confronted her that afternoon. I had to get answers, even if I wasn't ready for what I might find. I asked her about the bank statements, about the money she claimed was stolen, and about Jason. She looked at me with that same bitchy sneer and said, "You're being paranoid again, Ethan. You always jump to conclusions. That's just business stuff. You don't understand the first thing about finance, so stop accusing me of lying." Her tone was sharp, dismissive, and I could see her trying to gaslight me. I pressed her harder. "Lisa, I'm not stupid. I saw the transfers. I saw the emails. Something isn't adding up. Are you telling me Jason didn't steal the money, or are you hiding something else?" She rolled her eyes and crossed her arms. "Look, Ethan, I don't know what you're trying to pull, but I swear I have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe someone's messing with my accounts, or maybe it's just bad bookkeeping. Stop accusing me of lying without proof." That was the moment I realized how deep her lies went. She was lying to my face, trying to turn the tables on me, making me doubt my own instincts. But I knew her too well. She's always been manipulative, and she's always played the victim when things got tough. I could see through her bullshit, but I also felt a gnawing fear that she was hiding something bigger. The emotional toll was starting to hit me hard. I felt betrayed, not just because she cheated, but because I'd trusted her. I'd built a life with her, and now I wasn't sure what was real anymore. Was she really just a stressed-out wife trying to cover her tracks? Or was she a con artist, lying about the money to cover her own ass? The more I looked, the more I saw how her stories didn't add up. Her excuses about her business, her claims about Jason, the stolen money, they all seemed like parts of a puzzle she was trying to hide. I also couldn't shake the feeling that her affair was just the surface of something much darker. If she was lying about the money, what else was she hiding? Did she have other affairs? Was she planning to leave me? The thought of losing everything, my house, my savings, my reputation, was terrifying. I started to realize that her manipulations weren't just about the affair. They were about control, about hiding her true motives. In that moment, I decided I needed to get proof of her lies, no matter what it took. I couldn't rely on her word anymore. I hired a private investigator to look into her business transactions and her relationship with Jason. I also started to gather evidence of her affair, photos, messages, anything that could serve as leverage. I was determined to find out the truth, even if it tore my world apart. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, acting innocent, throwing tantrums, trying to turn me into the bad guy. She told me I was crazy, that I was paranoid, that I was ruining our marriage over nothing. But I knew better. I knew she was hiding something, and I was just trying to find out what it was. The more I dug, the more I realized that her lies were only the beginning. There was a lot more at stake than I'd initially thought, and I had to prepare myself for the storm that was coming. The thing is, I still loved her. Despite everything, part of me wanted to believe she'd come clean, that she'd tell me the truth and we could somehow fix this mess. But deep down, I knew that might never happen. She was a master at deception, and I was starting to see just how far she was willing to go to protect herself. I felt like I was walking a tightrope, unsure whether I was about to fall into a pit of lies or find a way out. All I knew was that I couldn't trust her anymore, not entirely. And the more I uncovered, the more I realized how much I had to lose. The days that followed were a blur of paranoia and mounting dread. I kept digging into her financial records, talking to the investigator, and trying to piece together what was real. Every new piece of evidence made my stomach churn more. The bank statements showed more suspicious activity, transfers to offshore accounts, payments to shell companies, and a pattern of her trying to hide her financial tracks. It was clear she'd been lying about the money from the start, and her story about Jason stealing $250, $0. It was almost certainly a lie. I started to realize that her claim about Jason being a thief was just her way of deflecting blame, of painting herself as a victim of a corrupt boss. But the more I looked into it, the more I saw how deeply she was involved. She'd been funneling money out of her business, possibly to cover her own tracks or fund her affair. I couldn't tell which, and honestly, I didn't want to believe she was capable of that kind of betrayal. But the evidence was stacking up. She'd been lying about everything, and I was starting to question how much of her life was a lie. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude hadn't changed. She was still bitchy, still manipulative. The way she dismissed my concerns, the way she gaslighted me, telling me I was crazy, paranoid, jealous, made my blood boil. She'd turn things around, accuse me of stalking her or invading her privacy. She even started throwing tantrums, crying fake tears, acting like I was the one tearing everything apart. She insisted she loved me, but her actions told a different story. One night I caught her texting someone, another guy, I was sure of it. I saw the messages pop up on her phone when she wasn't paying attention. She was sending flirtatious messages, calling him sweetheart, and saying they needed to meet up again soon. I felt like my world was shattering. How many times had I been blind? How many secrets was she hiding? That was the moment I decided I had to do something drastic. I couldn't keep living like this in the dark, unsure whether I was losing my mind or my marriage. I sat her down the next morning, my heart pounding. I told her I knew she was cheating. I knew she'd been lying about the money, and I wasn't going to take it anymore. Her face twisted into a snarl, and she spat back. "You're crazy. You're just jealous because I don't love you anymore. You're insecure, Ethan. You're always insecure." That was her favorite line, her way of dismissing everything, of turning the tables on me. But I was done playing her game. I told her I was filing for divorce. I wanted out. I couldn't live with her lies anymore. I wanted her to leave the house, to face the consequences of her actions. She yelled, called me a controlling asshole, said I was ruining her life, but I didn't care anymore. I'd made up my mind. I was going to get a lawyer, and I was going to fight for what was mine. My house, my savings, my dignity. That night she packed a bag and left in a rage. Her parting words were filled with venom. "You'll regret this, Ethan. You don't know what you're messing with." The way she said it, like she was warning me of some dark secret I'd never uncover, but I didn't care. I felt relief, anger, and a strange sense of clarity. I finally saw her for what she was, a manipulative, selfish woman who'd played me for years. The next day I met with my lawyer. We went over everything I had, her financial records, the evidence of her affair, her lies about the money. I learned that her claims about Jason stealing the funds were probably just another lie to cover her own tracks. The lawyer warned me that the situation was complicated. She might try to claim I was controlling or abusive to get the upper hand in the divorce, but I was prepared. I had the evidence, and I was ready to fight for my rights. Losing her was painful, but it was also a relief. I felt like I'd been living in a nightmare, and finally I was waking up. I realized that trusting someone blindly could destroy everything you've worked for. I'd been blindsided by her lies, her betrayal, her manipulations. I'd given her everything, my love, my trust, my life, and she'd thrown it all away for her own selfish reasons. The betrayal cut deep, but I knew I had to move on. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of her lies. Looking back, I see how much I've learned. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. I also learned that some people are better at hiding their true selves than I ever thought possible. And most importantly, I learned that revenge isn't about hurting her back. It's about reclaiming your life, your dignity, and your peace of mind. I'm still healing from this, but I know I'll come out stronger. And I want anyone reading this to know, don't ignore the signs. If someone's lying to you, if they're hiding secrets, trust your instincts. Because once the truth comes out, everything changes. The aftermath of everything hitting me like a freight train. I moved out of the house, got a new place, and started to piece my life back together. For a while, I felt numb, like I was just going through the motions trying to keep it all together. The divorce was messy, of course. Lisa fought hard, trying to spin her lies, claiming I was the one cheating or abusing her. She threw every accusation she could think of, but I had enough proof to counter her every move. Still, it was exhausting, dealing with her manipulations even after she left. One thing that really stuck with me was how she kept insisting that her affair with Jason was nothing serious, that it was just a way to get back at me for being so controlling. She kept saying I was paranoid and insecure, but I knew better now. I knew she'd been lying about the money, about her feelings, about everything. She'd used her charm and bitchy attitude to keep me off balance, to make me doubt myself. But now that I had the evidence, I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. The money situation was the most troubling part. I found out from my lawyer that her claims about Jason stealing $250, $0 might have been just another lie to cover her own tracks. Her story didn't hold up under scrutiny. Turns out she'd been funneling money out of her business for months, money she claimed was stolen, but really she was just hiding her own financial mess. It's like she'd been lying from the start, trying to manipulate me into thinking she was a victim. That realization made me furious. How could she be so deceitful? How could she betray me like that over and over? I also learned that her relationship with Jason was more than just an affair. They'd been meeting secretly, exchanging messages, and she even confided in him about her financial problems. It was clear she'd been using her affair as a way to escape her reality, to find some kind of validation she never got from me. That realization hurt more than anything. I'd been blind, yes, but I also felt stupid for ever trusting her. She played the victim so well, acting innocent, while she was orchestrating this entire web of lies. The emotional toll was overwhelming. I felt betrayed, angry, and deeply hurt. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs. How did I not see her coming? But I also knew that I couldn't dwell on the past. I had to focus on moving forward. I started therapy, trying to process everything. I couldn't let her lies define me, but I also refused to be a victim of her manipulations any longer. One thing I realized was that her bitchy attitude was just her defense mechanism. She's always been a master at turning things around, making herself look innocent or the victim. I saw through her a lot clearer now. She's a control freak, a liar, and she's willing to do whatever it takes to save herself, even if it means destroying everything we built together. That's a hard pill to swallow, but it's the truth. I also started focusing on my own finances, making sure I protected what I could. I hired a financial advisor to help me sort through the mess she left behind. I wanted to ensure that I wouldn't lose everything: my house, my savings, my reputation. The lawyer said I had a good case, but I knew she'd try to drag things out to make me doubt myself again. That's why I stayed vigilant. As I reflect on everything, I realize how much I've changed. I used to be trusting, maybe even naive, but now I'm more cautious. I don't trust easily anymore. I've learned that some people are masters at deception, and you have to be careful who you let into your life. I also learned that revenge isn't about hurting her back. It's about reclaiming yourself, about showing her that she can't manipulate or betray you without consequences. I don't regret what I did, exposing her, walking away, fighting for my rights. It's difficult, sure. I still have moments where I feel like I've lost everything, but I remind myself that I haven't lost my dignity. I've gained clarity. I've learned to listen to my instincts and to trust myself more. And I've come to accept that sometimes people are just not who they pretend to be. Now I focus on rebuilding. I've started dating again, cautiously. I know I need to heal first, but I also realize I deserve honesty and respect. No more lies, no more manipulations. That's the lesson I want to share with anyone reading this. Trust is fragile, and betrayal cuts deep, but you can come out the other side stronger if you're willing to face the truth and fight for yourself. Don't let anyone take away your peace or your dignity. Even when it feels like everything's falling apart, there's always a way to rebuild. The process of rebuilding has been one of the hardest things I've ever done, but also one of the most eye-opening. After everything, I knew I had to focus on myself, on healing, on protecting what's mine, and making sure I don't get blindsided again. I cut all ties with Lisa, blocked her number, and made sure she couldn't manipulate me anymore. I've learned that some people are just better at hiding their true selves than I ever thought possible. Trust, once broken, isn't easily repaired, and I refuse to be a fool again. One of the most surprising things I discovered was how deeply her lies had affected my sense of self. For a while, I felt like I'd lost my identity. Was I too naive? Did I miss the signs? Was I just blind? Those questions haunted me. But I gradually started to realize that her betrayal wasn't about me. It was about her choosing to lie, manipulate, and cheat. I was just a victim of her deception. That realization was both painful and freeing. I threw myself into work and therapy. I needed to restore my confidence and rebuild my sense of trust in myself. I learned to listen to my instincts again, to recognize the warning signs I'd ignored before. I also started reading about emotional manipulation and betrayal so I could better understand what had happened. It helped me see how she'd played the victim, how she'd twisted facts, and how she'd used her bitchy attitude to control the narrative. Financially, I took control. I worked with a new lawyer and a financial advisor to make sure I protected my assets. I was terrified of losing everything: the house, the savings, my stability, and I didn't want her lies to ruin me. The lawyer told me I had a good case, but I knew she'd fight dirty. She had a way of turning everything around to make herself look innocent. That's just who she is, masterful at manipulation and gaslighting. But I was prepared this time. The biggest lesson I learned from all this is that honesty and trust are fragile. Once they're broken, it's almost impossible to go back. And some people will do whatever it takes to hide their true motives. I realized that I need to be more cautious, more aware of the red flags. Because I was blinded by love, by hope, by the idea that she'd change. But the truth is, some people don't want to change. They just want to manipulate and control. What's been comforting is knowing I'm not alone in this. I've spoken to friends, joined support groups, and even started journaling my feelings. I want to share this because I know there are others out there who might be going through something similar. Betrayal cuts deep, but it doesn't have to define you. It's a painful lesson, but a lesson nonetheless. I've learned to trust myself more, to listen to my gut, and to never ignore the signs again. I've also realized that revenge isn't about hurting her anymore. It's about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my peace of mind. It's about moving forward and not letting her lies hold me hostage. I want to be better, stronger, and more aware. Because at the end of the day, I know I deserve honesty and respect, and I refuse to settle for anything less. Looking ahead, I'm focusing on my future, on building a life where I trust myself and the people around me. I'm dating again, cautiously, but with more discernment. I want honesty, loyalty, and someone who values me for who I am. No more secrets, no more lies, just genuine connection. That's what I deserve, and that's what I'm working towards. So to anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, trust your instincts. Don't ignore the red flags. And if someone lies, manipulates, or cheats, cut them out. It hurts, yes, but it's better than living in deception. You're stronger than you think, and you can rebuild. You just have to be willing to face the truth and take control of your life again. That's the real victory. Looking back on everything, I realize that I've come through a storm I never expected to face. I used to think love was enough, that if someone loved you, it would protect you from betrayal. Turns out, love isn't enough when someone's fundamentally dishonest and manipulative. I learned that trust must be earned every day, not given blindly, and that some people are just better at hiding their true selves than you could ever imagine. The betrayal hit me hard. It shattered my sense of security, my confidence, and my trust in my own judgment. But it also taught me a brutal, invaluable lesson. Never ignore the warning signs. Always listen to that little voice inside that tells you something's wrong. Because if you don't, you might wake up one day and find your whole world has been a lie. That was the harsh truth I had to face. And honestly, it's a lesson I wish I hadn't had to learn the hard way. Still, I'm grateful for the clarity I gained. I now understand that revenge isn't about getting even. It's about reclaiming yourself, the dignity, the respect, and the peace you deserve. I've realized that I don't need to hurt her to move on. I just need to focus on my own healing and growth. I've learned to forgive myself for trusting too easily, and I've learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well, without lies, without manipulation, without someone controlling your narrative. I've also come to see that the pain of betrayal, while intense, can be a catalyst for growth. It forces you to reevaluate what you want from life and from the people around you. It makes you stronger, more cautious, more aware. I won't be blindsided again, and I'm determined to build a future based on honesty, respect, and real connection, things I now know are worth fighting for. To anyone out there who's going through something similar, hold on. It's going to hurt, but it's also going to teach you who you really are. Trust yourself more than ever and don't be afraid to walk away from the lies. You deserve honesty and loyalty. Don't settle for less. The road to healing isn't easy, but it's worth it. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing is that you stand tall, own your truth, and never let anyone take that away from you.